The clang of metal echoed down the school hallway as a single dad in a faded work shirt crouched in front of a broken locker, his calloused hands steady on the rusty hinges. A group of students leaned against the wall, snickering loud enough for him to hear. "Man, look at him like some janitor straight out of the 90s, one teen whispered. Another laughed, that he doesn't even know what he's doing. Their laughter bounced cruelly off the lockers, sharp as glass, but they didn't know the truth. They didn't know who this man really was until the principal walked out, saw what was happening, and did something no one expected. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. Dad, maybe you shouldn't, whispered 10-year-old Ethan, standing close to his father, Daniel Hayes, as the mocking laughter carried down the hallway. His small voice trembled, embarrassed for the man who had sacrificed everything for him. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he kept working. "It's all right, buddy," he murmured, not raising his eyes. His screwdriver slipped for a second, and the laughter exploded louder. One student, tall with a varsity jacket, sneered. "Pathetic. My dad's in finance, your dad's fixing." "Rust." He slapped his friend's shoulder, sending another round of chuckles down the row. Daniel's hands stilled for a moment. Every muscle in him screamed to lash out, to defend himself. But then Ethan's tiny hand slid into his, a silent reminder of what mattered. Daniel inhaled slowly, grounding himself. "Hey," Daniel said softly to his son, forcing a smile. "You know how we fix things at home? Same thing here, nothing to be ashamed of." But shame wasn't the word. It was cruelty. And the cruelty hurt Ethan more than it hurt him. What no one knew was that Daniel hadn't always been fixing lockers. Years ago, he'd been someone else entirely, someone respected, someone who had worn a uniform and carried the weight of lives on his shoulders. But today, in this hallway, none of that mattered, until the door at the end of the hall slammed open. Principal Carter, middle-aged, sharp-eyed, known for his no-nonsense authority, stepped out. His gaze swept the students, then landed on Daniel. Silence fell instantly. The air shifted. Daniel wiped the sweat from his brow and began to rise. But before he could, Principal Carter did something no one expected. He stopped, straightened, and then he lifted his hand and gave a sharp, deliberate salute. The students froze. Ethan's eyes widened, and Daniel, his chest constricted. Memories he had buried deep clawed to the surface. "Sir," Principal Carter's voice carried down the hall, steady, commanding. "Permission to speak in your presence." The kids' laughter died in their throats. Confusion rippled. What was happening? Ethan looked up at his dad, whispering, "Why is he saluting you?" Daniel's throat tightened, but before he could answer, Principal Carter spoke again. "You all mock him for fixing your lockers." Carter's voice cut through the silence. "But you should know something. This man carried soldiers through fire. He served in the 82nd Airborne. While you sit here laughing, you're standing in the hallway because men like him kept your country safe." Gasps filled the air. The varsity kid dropped his smirk. Someone whispered, "Wait, he was a soldier?" Daniel wanted to crawl away from the attention, but Ethan's grip tightened. His boy's eyes wide, proud, shimmering with something Daniel hadn't seen in years, made it impossible to hide. Principal Carter stepped closer. "Daniel Hayes isn't just fixing your lockers. He's fixing your future. And if any of you think that's laughable, you should think again." The hallway was silent, heavy with shame. And then one small act of kindness broke it. A girl, barely 16, stepped forward. "Sir," she said softly, holding out a small bottle of water she had in her hand. You should have this." Her voice trembled, but her respect was clear. Daniel hesitated, then took it with a nod. "Thank you." And for the first time in years, Daniel Hayes wasn't just a single dad fixing broken things. He was seen. ***. The hallway, once filled with jeers, now felt like a courtroom after a guilty verdict. Every pair of teenage eyes darted between the principal and Daniel, struggling to make sense of what they'd just witnessed. The same hands that had twisted screws into a dented locker were once steady enough to guide soldiers through war. The idea sat heavy in the air, choking the laughter that had mocked him minutes ago. Daniel cleared his throat, uncomfortable in the silence. Principal Carter. "That's enough," he muttered, his voice low but firm. He never wanted his past dragged into the present, not like this, not in front of his son, not when he had worked so hard to stay invisible. But Principal Carter only shook his head. His voice was calm, deliberate, laced with respect. "Mr. Hayes, you deserve more recognition than this school, or even I could give you. These kids needed to learn today that character isn't measured by a paycheck, a uniform, or a title. It's measured by sacrifice." Ethan's hand squeezed Daniel's tighter. His little chest swelled with a pride that nearly undid his father. Daniel crouched instinctively, wanting to shield his boy from the piercing stares. But when he looked into Ethan's eyes, he saw nothing but admiration, no shame, no embarrassment, just wide-eyed awe. A voice cracked the silence. The varsity kid, the ringleader of the laughter, shifted awkwardly. His face, once smug, was now pale. "Sir, I didn't know." Daniel's gaze snapped up, sharp, controlled. "You didn't need to know," he said quietly. "But you do need to remember, every single person you see every day is fighting battles you can't see. Some are louder, some are silent. And the way you treat them, that's who you are." The boy's throat bobbed. His hands jammed into his pockets, his voice barely audible. "I'm sorry." The apology hung there, clumsy but real. Other students shifted uncomfortably, some staring at the floor, others at their shoes. One girl whispered, "My dad was in the service too." He never talks about it either." Daniel blinked. For a moment, he was back in the sand and heat, echoes of choppers above, the sting of dust and smoke. He had sworn never to bring that world home to Ethan. Yet here it was, seeping into a school hallway, written in the principal's salute, and the nervous stares of children who suddenly saw him as more than a janitor with a wrench. He straightened, his voice steady but filled with weight. "I'm not looking for apologies or recognition. I came here today to fix a locker, not to stand on a pedestal." He paused, his eyes scanning the group, firm but not cruel. "But let me say this. Respect costs you nothing. Kindness costs you nothing. And both will give you more than you'll ever understand." The silence deepened. Some of the students shifted, others swallowed hard. Ethan leaned against his dad's side, his small body trembling with a mix of relief and pride. Then something unexpected happened. The varsity kid, his face red with shame, stepped forward. He looked down at Ethan first, then up at Daniel. "Sir," he said softly, "let me hold the flashlight for you while you finish fixing the locker." The words stunned everyone. For a heartbeat, Daniel considered brushing him off. Old instincts told him not to trust the sudden change of heart. But Ethan tugged on his sleeve, whispering, "Dad, let him." So Daniel nodded. "All right. Hold it steady." The boy fumbled with the flashlight at first, but then adjusted, angling the light exactly where Daniel's hands worked. Together, quietly, they finished the job. No laughter now, no jeers. Just the quiet rhythm of tools and breathing. Locker door finally clicked shut, smooth and secure. A small ripple of applause broke out. Not the mocking, exaggerated kind, but hesitant, genuine. A few claps at first, then more, until the sound filled the hallway. Daniel stood, wiping his hands on his shirt. He didn't bow. He didn't wave. He just nodded once, firmly, as if acknowledging a truth long ignored. Principal Carter stepped closer, his voice softer now. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for the lockers. And for far more than that, Daniel met his gaze. Something unspoken passed. Between them, the kind of understanding only men who had walked through fire could share. "Just doing my job," Daniel said, though his voice carried more layers than the words revealed. He started to walk away, Ethan clinging to his side. But halfway down the hall, Ethan pulled at his arm. "Dad," he whispered urgently. Daniel looked down. "What is it, buddy?" Ethan's eyes glistened, his small chest heaving with emotion. "I'm proud of you." The words hit harder than any salute, any applause, any whispered respect from strangers. Daniel's throat tightened. He ruffled Ethan's hair with a trembling hand and whispered back, "That's all I ever wanted to hear." Behind them, the students, still quiet, still processing, watched as the man they had mocked moments ago walked away, his shoulders straighter, his son's head resting against his side. But kindness wasn't done with them yet. As Daniel reached the end of the hall, the same girl who had offered him water earlier hurried forward, her steps quick. "Sir," she called softly, "wait." He turned. She held out a folded note, her hands shaking. "My brother. He's overseas right now. I don't know how to be strong for him. Could you maybe tell me what to say in my next letter?" Daniel blinked, his chest tightening. He took the note carefully, his rough fingers brushing against her trembling ones. His voice softened, almost breaking. "Tell him you believe in him. Tell him you'll be here when he comes home. That's all a soldier ever wants to hear." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Thank you." And in that moment, the hallway wasn't about lockers or laughter anymore. It was about something bigger, about respect, about unseen battles, about how one man's scars could remind others of their own humanity. Daniel walked away with Ethan, the sound of hushed whispers and shifting hearts left behind him. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like just a man patching broken things. He felt like a father whose son had seen the truth, and like a soldier whose fight had finally found meaning in kindness. The school bell shrieked through the hallways, sending kids scattering in every direction. Yet the echo of what had just happened, of the principal's salute, the silence, the flashlight held steady, lingered like smoke after a fire. Daniel wanted nothing more than to take Ethan home, make dinner, and let the day fade into memory. But fate rarely lets a man walk away so easily. By the time they reached the front doors, a group of students had already gathered. Not the jeering pack from earlier, but kids Daniel had never spoken to before, some shy, some nervous, all curious. One boy, skinny with glasses, stepped forward. His voice shook. "Mr. Hayes, my dad left when I was little. I don't have anyone to show me how to fix stuff." He swallowed hard. "Could you maybe teach me sometime?" "I'll help however you need." Daniel froze. His instinct was to say no, to keep his head low, to shield Ethan from more attention. But Ethan's small hand tugged at his sleeve. "Dad," he whispered, "you should." So Daniel nodded slowly. "All right, kid. But only if you promise to listen better than my son does when I tell him to clean his room." The boy laughed nervously, and for the first time that day, Daniel felt something shift, not just in the students, but inside himself. That evening, at home, Daniel and Ethan sat across from each other at their modest kitchen table. Spaghetti steamed between them, and the boy's smile was brighter than Daniel had seen in months. "Dad," Ethan said between bites, "they looked at you so different today. Even the principal, he saluted you, like in the movies." Daniel set down his fork, his throat tightening. "That's not what matters, buddy." Ethan tilted his head. "Then what does?" Daniel reached across the table, his calloused hand covering Ethan's smaller one. "What matters is that you never measure a person by their job, or their clothes, or how much money they make. You measure them by their heart, by how they treat others. Remember that." The boy's eyes softened, his little shoulders squaring like he was carrying the weight of the words. "I will, Dad, I promise." The next morning, Daniel thought the storm had passed. He showed up at school, ready to work quietly. But when he walked into the building, something stopped him cold. A group of students stood waiting, lockers propped open, tools scattered, one even holding a battered toolbox they borrowed from home. At the center stood the varsity kid, the same one who had mocked him. "Sir," the boy said firmly, no laughter in his voice this time, "we want to help fix the lockers too. You don't have to do it alone anymore." Daniel blinked, stunned. "You're students. This isn't your job." The kid swallowed, his jaw tight. "Maybe not. But you showed us yesterday. Respect, kindness. We should have given that back. Let us help." For a moment, Daniel said nothing. Then, slowly, he handed over the screwdriver. "All right," he said gruffly. "First lesson, don't strip the screws." The hallway filled with laughter again, but this time, it was different, lighter, real. Ethan watched from the side, his chest swelling with pride as his dad showed the same boys who mocked him how to line a hinge, how to tighten a bolt, how to repair instead of destroy. And Principal Carter, watching quietly from the end of the hall, allowed himself the smallest of smiles. That Friday, the school held an assembly. Daniel tried to duck out. Crowds were never his comfort, but Carter insisted. The principal stepped up to the microphone, clearing his throat. "Students," he began, "this week, many of you learned a lesson no textbook could teach you. You learned about dignity, about respect, and about the power of kindness." He gestured toward Daniel, who stood awkwardly at the side of the stage, Ethan clutching his hand. "This man," Carter continued, his voice firm, "was mocked for fixing your lockers. But he didn't lash out. He didn't walk away. He showed you what patience looks like. He showed you what resilience is. And he reminded us that behind every face, there's a story we might not see." The gym fell silent. Then, to Daniel's shock, students began to rise to their feet, one row, then another, a standing ovation. Applause thundered through the air, echoing off the rafters. Daniel stood frozen, his chest tight, his eyes burning. Ethan tugged at his hand. "Dad," he whispered, "they're clapping for you." Daniel swallowed hard. Nobody. They're clapping for the lesson, for what it means to respect people. But Ethan shook his head fiercely. "No, they're clapping for you." And maybe for the first time, Daniel allowed himself to believe it. When the applause finally died down, Principal Carter leaned close. "You may not wear the uniform anymore, Mr. Hayes, but today you served again. And you changed more lives than you'll ever know." Daniel didn't respond. He just nodded, his eyes fixed on Ethan's bright, proud face. Because in the end, it wasn't the salute, the apology, or even the applause that mattered. It was his son's hand in his, and the knowledge that for Ethan his hero had never stopped being one. And as they left the gym together, the echo of kindness lingered in the air, reminding everyone who had witnessed it that respect once given could ripple further than anyone ever imagined.